In the summer of 1945, the world changed forever. On August the 6th, a blinding flash lit up the skies over Hiroshima. People were thrown to the ground, buildings burned, and a mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Chaos, fire, silence. And in the middle of it all stood a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He had been on a business trip to Hiroshima from his home in Nagasaki. He'd seen the flash, and now he was badly burned and bleeding from the head. His clothes were in tatters, but he was alive. He stumbled around, dazed, trying to make sense of what had happened. Then he started to see the devastation around him. Bodies lay strewn across the ground, many too burned beyond recognition. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of death. It was the first atomic bomb in history. Dazed and confused, Yamaguchi found shelter in an abandoned building. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the ruined city, he made the decision to try and get home to Nagasaki. Little did he know that his journey would become one of the most harrowing tales of survival in human history, and that when he reached Nagasaki, he would survive the second atomic bomb ever dropped on Earth. His clothes torn and his body covered in blisters, Yamaguchi set out on foot towards the train station. The road was littered with debris and the occasional body. People he passed by, their skin peeling away, revealing the flesh beneath. He saw entire families wiped out, parents still holding the hands of their dead children. Everywhere he looked, there was nothing but death and destruction. It took him 2 days to reach the train station. By this time his body was covered in ulcers and he could barely walk. But he was determined to get home. He boarded a train, but it was soon clear that there was no air raid wardens on duty. It was dangerous to travel, but he had no choice. 3 days later, on August the 9th, as the train pulled into Nagasaki station, the world shook again. A blinding flash illuminated the faces of the passengers, followed by an intense heat that burned their flesh. People screamed as they were thrown to the ground. The second atomic bomb had just exploded. Yamaguchi had survived the first nuclear attack in history, and 6 days later, he survived the second. But how did he do it? What made this man seemingly invincible? When the bomb exploded, Yamaguchi was thrown from the train onto the ground. His body was immediately engulfed in flames, his skin peeled away, revealing the raw flesh beneath. But somehow he managed to scramble to safety. He was then met with a scene of utter devastation. Buildings were burnt to a crisp, people lay dead on the ground, many of them skeletal remains. Others were so badly burned that their bodies had melted away, leaving nothing but ash. It was a nightmare. But amidst the horror, there was something else. There were survivors, people who had somehow managed to pull themselves together in the face of such devastation. They were burned and bloodied, but they were alive. And among them was Yamaguchi. He had survived 2 atomic bombs, a feat that seemed almost impossible. But it wasn't just luck that kept him alive. It was his indomitable spirit, his will to live, and his determination to get home to his family. Even after suffering such horrific injuries, he had refused to give up. Instead, he had pulled himself together and survived. As he staggered home, his body broken and his mind traumatized, he knew he had to do something to help the survivors. He couldn't just sit back and watch as they suffered. He had to do something. When he finally got home, he collapsed. His wife rushed to his side, her face streaked with tears and grime. She had heard about the bomb, but she didn't know if her husband was dead or alive. When he regained consciousness, he told her what he had seen. The death, the destruction, the suffering. She listened, her face ashen, unable to comprehend the horrors he had witnessed. He urged her to go out and help the survivors, but she was afraid. The world was in chaos. No one knew what was going to happen next. But Yamaguchi knew he had to do something, so he got out of bed and started to make his way to the city. He was determined to help the survivors, to do whatever he could to ease their pain. But when he got out into the streets, he realized the full extent of the devastation. It was like a scene from a horror movie. People were wandering around in a daze, their skin peeling away, their eyes blank and empty. Some were crying out in pain, others were simply staring into the distance. Yamaguchi felt a surge of anger. How could this have happened? Who was responsible for this carnage? But then he saw a child lying on the ground, her face contorted in pain. And in that moment, his anger turned to resolve. He wasn't going to stand by and watch. He was going to do something. He helped the child, tending to her wounds and comforting her as best he could. Then he moved on, helping anyone he came across. He didn't know how long he had been walking for, but eventually he came across a group of survivors who were trying to rebuild their lives. They were burned and bloodied, but they were determined to carry on. And Yamaguchi joined them. Together they shared their food, their stories, and their pain. They were all survivors, bound together by their shared trauma. But not everyone was so lucky. Some people succumbed to their injuries and died. Others simply lost their minds. Yamaguchi saw people at their best and worst. Some people showed incredible courage and compassion, while others resorted to stealing and killing. But he never lost hope. He knew that if he could just get out of Nagasaki, he could find safety. So he started to make plans. He gathered supplies, built shelter, and organized the survivors. He was determined to make a stand against the chaos. But then the Japanese government announced that Nagasaki had been occupied by the Allies. Yamaguchi knew that his chance for escape was running out. He had to do something drastic if he wanted to survive. So he did the unthinkable. He surrendered. He and the other survivors raised their hands in the air and walked slowly towards the soldiers. Their bodies were covered in sores and their faces were gaunt, but their spirits were unbroken. When the soldiers saw the state they were in, they were taken aback. They had never seen anything like it before. But they welcomed the survivors, offering them food and water, and that's when Yamaguchi's ordeal truly ended. He had survived the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but the scars he had sustained would never fully heal. He had seen things that no one should ever see, and the memories would haunt him for the rest of his life. But he was also a survivor of the human spirit. He had shown incredible courage and resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. He had helped others, even when he himself was in desperate need, and he had never given up hope. After the war, Yamaguchi became an anti-war activist, speaking out about the horrors of the atomic bombs and campaigning for peace. He was determined to ensure that what had happened to him and the other survivors would never happen again. He died in 2010 at the age of 93, but his legacy lives on. He was a true hero, a man who had survived the impossible and who had dedicated his life to making the world a better place. In the face of such unimaginable adversity, Yamaguchi had shown the world the true meaning of courage, resilience, and hope. His story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail. And it's a message that we need now more than ever. The world is a dangerous place. There are people who want to hurt others for no reason, but we must never give in to fear or hatred. We must always strive for peace and understanding. That's the only way we can honor the memory of those who have suffered and died in wars and conflicts. Yamaguchi was a true hero, a man who had faced unimaginable adversity and emerged with his humanity intact. His story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail, and it's a message that we must never forget. Now you need to watch the man who survived World War II for 7 years, or check out Why Does China Hate the USA So Much?